Central America, known for its nice tropical climate, tourist resorts, and high murder rates, but not its history. But that's about to change, and yeah, this video is not really about the history of Central America. It's this weird region that stretches between Costa Rica and the Yucatan. But yeah, I said I liked weird regions, so let's get started. Between 4000 and 1000 BC, people of Central America made the transition from hunting and foraging to plant cultivation, pottery in the Parita Bay region of Panama, dating back to about 2130 BC, reflected South American cultural influence, which eventually reached as far north as Guatemala and Chiapas. Mexican influence in Chiapas dates from at least 1500 BC, and therefore it extends as far south as Nicaragua and Costa Rica. Central America thus became a meeting ground for Mesoamerican, South American, and Caribbean peoples. After around 1000 BC, organized sedentary communications developed among them. Although cassava and other tubers were important to Aboriginals of the Caribbean coast, corn was the primary staple of food of most Central Americans, accompanied by a wide variety of beans, squash, and other vegetables and fruits. Much later on, sometime around 100 BC, the pre-classic Maya emerged as a distinct people developing large urban areas. The Olmec culture and other Mexican influences substantially affected the development of Mayan civilization. Meanwhile, in Costa Rica, South American Chibcha influence was prevalent, while Caribbean cultural patterns penetrated the coastal plain from Panama to Honduras. Sometime after this, a people called the Pech people, also known as the Paya, migrated from the south to inhabit a large territory close to the border of Nicaragua. The Pech Indians occupied a large portion of the northeastern Honduran land, which anthropologists define as Lower Central America. According to anthropologists, this lower sector of Central America was considered to be a part of the lesser developed intermediate area of Honduras. Nearby on the Mosquito Coast, there were Maya, large number of small egalitarian groups possibly speaking languages related to Sumu and Paya. Fast forward to 100 AD, the Maya experienced a dark age of depopulation and mysterious abandonment of their cities. Following this, the Maya leaders became puppets of natives further west and north called the Teotihuacan. After this, the classic Maya period began in 250 AD, which was a golden age of math, architecture, and science, with constantly shifting alliances among the various Maya city-states. Around 500 AD, the Chorotega people fled these conflicts between the Maya into what is now Guanacaste, Costa Rica, where they thrived. Eventually, in the 6th century, two city-states dominated the others, the Calakmul in the north and Tikal in the south. However, the Maya weren't uncontested in northern Central America. Central Mexican Nahuatl influence challenged the Maya and stretched along the Pacific coast, including Chorotega. In fact, around this time, a cohesive group sharing a central Mexican culture migrated all the way to the southern Guatemalan Piedmont. They settled around this town, a region rich in natural resources. This group and their descendants are today referred to as the Pipil Indians. They later arrived in El Salvador around the year 900 and had to fight their way to the new land due to the fact the Mayan civil wars that were taking place as well. But thanks to Mayan treaties, the Pipil had many Mayan allies. Nearby Mayan city-states became absorbed into a polity confederation called Cuzcatlan. According to legend, its capital city was founded by the exiled Toltec with this name that I can't pronounce, around the year 1054. In the 13th century, Pipil city-states were most likely unified, and by 1400 a hereditary monarchy had been established. Rewinding to shortly before the 10th century, a possibly Nahuatl-speaking people who had conquered most of modern-day Mexico called the Toltecs conquered the northern Yucatan, causing the Maya to decline. During their decline, a people sharing common heritage with the Chibcha of South America America migrated to the Pacific fringe of modern-day Nicaragua called the Cacaopera. Then the Maya formed the League of Mayapan in 987 against the Toltecs and other Nahuatl people. Fast forward to the 1070s and a horrible famine struck the Toltec Empire, leading to a very long-lasting chaos. This, combined with the more united Maya, meant the Toltecs lost their Yucatan territory to the Maya easily. But nothing lasts forever. In 1175, the League of Mayapan began to disintegrate. Fasting forward just a little more to around 1200, the Nicarao split from the Pipil people and moved into what is now Nicaragua. The beginning of this series of migrations was likely to have been linked to the collapse of the Toltecs. With the cessation of Maya influence in the region and the rise of cultural traits originating in the Valley of Mexico, the Nicarao settled in several pockets distributed through western Nicaragua and possibly also extended into what is now northwestern Costa Rica. They also displaced the Chorotega and seized control of the most productive land around the western portions of Lake Nicaragua and the Gulf of Fonseca. The Nicarao would also often engage in war with the Cacaopera, probably in order to capture slaves and prisoners to be offered for human sacrifice. The area now covered by the Rivas Department appears to have been conquered by the Nicarao in the 15th century. In 1502, the first ever recorded contact between the natives of Central America and Europeans occurred. From 1517 to 1519, the Spanish explored the coast of the Yucatan and attempted to conquer it with little success. Slightly later, the Spanish first encountered the Nicarao in 1522 at the Isthmus of Rivas. The Nicarao would go on to become completely annihilated over the next century. Numerous subsequent Spanish expeditions followed, eventually leading to the first Spanish colony in Costa Rica, Villa Bruselas, founded in 1524. February that same year, a certain Spaniard named Pedro de Alvarado and his army advanced through the Panama Canal along the Pacific coast unopposed until they reached the Samala River in western Guatemala. This region formed a part of one of many Mayan kingdoms called the Quiche. Once across, the conquistadors started fighting the Maya. By the 9th of May 1524, Pedro had won his first battle against the Pipil and would continue to launch expeditions against the Pipil Native Americans in El Salvador from the Guatemalan highlands until July 1524, when he retreated back to Guatemala, where he would continue to fight the Maya until 1525. And in October that year, Gonzalo del Alvarado y Contreras would pick up the torch and continue the complete conquest of Guatemala and founded San Salvador. After subduing the highland Maya city-states through battle and co-option, the Spanish sought to extend their dominion to the lower Pacific region of the Pipiles. Then Pedro de Alvarado, now a lieutenant of Hernán Cortés, the Spanish conqueror of the Aztecs, led the first Spanish invasion in June 1524 and was accompanied by thousands of Tlaxcala and Cachiquel allies who had long been rivals of the Cuscatlan for control over their wealthy cacao-producing region. The Pipil sent the Catholic army retreating back to Guatemala. The Spaniards left smallpox behind and came back with reinforcements. Unable to defeat this resistance, Diego Alvarado had led the rest of the conquest. Two subsequent Spanish expeditions were required to achieve the complete defeat of Cuscatlan, one in 1525 and another in 1528. From 1525 to 1526, Hernán Cortés invaded Honduras and subjugated the northern Nahuatl areas of it with the help of 140 Spanish soldiers, 93 of them mounted, 3,000 Mexican warriors, 150 horses, and 600 Chontal Maya carriers. The southern Maya and rest of modern-day Honduras would not be subjugated until 1531. El Salvador and the rest of Nicaragua would fall completely to the Spanish Empire in 1529. I said the rest of Nicaragua since the Cacaopera people were feared by the Spanish because of their bravery and efficiency with their bows and other arms, which earned them the nickname Indios Flecheros, Arqueros, or archery Indians. In Nicaragua, it took 300 years for the Spanish to submit them. Even by 1821, there are many Matagalpas or Cacaopera people free in the central mountains of Nicaragua. By 1533, all of Costa Rica was under Spanish rule. Meanwhile, it wasn't until the conquistadors defeated the indigenous resistance near Ticamaya that the Spanish began to conquer Honduras in 1536. Native towns were divided and their labor was given to them as repartimiento. Further indigenous uprisings near Gracias a Dios, Comayagua, and Olancho occurred in 1537 to 38. The uprising near Gracias a Dios was led by a native named Lempira, who is honored today by the name of the Honduran currency. In 1538, the Viceroyalty of New Spain was established, encompassing all of Mexico and Central America except Panama. By 1570, the southern part of New Spain was designated the Captaincy General of Guatemala. After the Spanish established dominance in Campeche, a certain Francisco de Montejo summoned the local Maya lords and commanded them to submit to the Spanish crown. A number of lords submitted peacefully, including the ruler of the Xiu Maya. The lord of the Canul Maya refused to submit to Montejo. Montejo sent his cousin against them. Montejo himself remained in Campeche awaiting reinforcements. His cousin met with the Canul Maya at Chacan on the 6th of January 1542. He founded the second permanent town council, calling the new colonial town Merida. On the 23rd of January, Tutul Xiu, the lord of Mani, approached the Spanish encampment at Merida in peace, bearing sorely needed food, supplies. He expressed interest in the Spanish religion and witnessed a Roman Catholic Mass celebrated for his benefit. Tutul Xiu was greatly impressed and converted to the new religion. He was baptized as Melchor and stayed with the Spanish at Merida for 2 months, receiving instruction in Catholic faith. Tutul Xiu was the ruler of the most powerful province of the Yucatan, and his submission to Spain and conversion to Christianity had repercussions throughout the peninsula and encouraged lords of the western provinces of the peninsula to accept Spanish rule. The eastern provinces continued to resist Spanish overtures. Francisco de Montejo next sent his cousin to Chahuaca, where most of the eastern lords greeted him in peace. Montejo continued to the eastern Icab province, reaching the east coast at Pole, where the northern Yucatan would finally be conquered. Spanish authorities issued various licenses to conquer some coastal Petch settlements in 1545, 1562, 1577, and 1594, but no evidence suggests that any of these licenses resulted in even brief settlements or conquests. The Spanish were unable to conquer this region during the 16th century, and in the 17th century sought to reduce the region through missionary efforts. These included several attempts by Franciscans between 1604 and 1612, another one led by a certain Fray Cristobal Martinez in 1622, and a third one between 1667 and 1675. None of these efforts resulted in any lasting success. Because the Spanish failed to have significant influence in the region, it remained independent of outside control. This allowed the indigenous people to continue their traditional way of life and to receive visitors from other regions. English and Dutch privateers who preyed on Spanish ships soon found refuge there and called it the Mosquito Coast, because a political entity of uncertain organization, but probably not very stratified, which the English called the Mosquito Kingdom, was present on the coast. In the first missionary effort between 1622 and 23, Cristobal Martinez and 2 of his buddies named Benito de San Francisco and Juan de Bina founded the Paya reductions. Since 1630, the Mosquito Kingdom stood strongly against any Spanish incursions and was prepared to offer rest and asylum to any anti-Spanish groups that might come to their shores. The Providence Island Company sponsored the Mosquito King's son visit to England during the reign of Charles I. When his father died, his son returned home and placed his country under English protection.